briefly in the previous panel discussion as well. So let's take that forward and go ahead and invite the moderator for the session. Thank you. We have with us Mr. Arjun Sumaya, who's the head for retail transactions in India and retail services for West India, and he heads alternatives in India from JLL. Thank you for joining us. Joining him are the speakers. We have with us Manik Dodi, who is the real estate director for global sales Adidas, Abhishek Trehan, director for Trehan Iris, Sunil Khanna, founder for Songdew, Harsha, co-founder of Find, Amit Datta, CEO for Lamarche Retail, and Rinal Mithal, Director Unity Group for Director CP67. All right, so we have the panelists on the stage, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Arjun to take it over from here.
Thank you for joining in. The topic for today is the evolution of retail stores into an experience center. And today, as we are living in the world where everything is Instagrammable, social media has greatly influenced on how and what we buy today. Hence, it's critical that stores evolve beyond the regular buy and sell, as e-commerce is challenging them. So getting into the questions, as we've got a shorter session today, we'll start off with a question to Amit. And the question is, how do we differentiate physical stores so that the customer comes back again and again and increases their shopping basket? And how do we increase the time spent within the store?
Sure, thanks Arjun. So as a brand per se, we've always been focused on experience, because even though we are into grocery retailing, we are a retailer who doesn't really focus on discounting much. Majority of our merchandise sells at MRP. So in essence, even before the pandemic, our focus was there on creating that right experience for our customer base. Post the pandemic, however, what has changed is that a few trends have set in, and unfortunately, the pandemic hit us for far too long for those habits to have now firmed up. A couple of trends that we've observed is that the time spent in the stores, as you rightly said, has gone down. Also, what we are seeing as a retailer is that the exploration or the experimentation by the consumers has gone down, because the risk factors associated with them are significantly higher. Now, what happens there is that, where would a customer actually enter into exploration or experimentation is mostly with new products or products that they are not aware of what they are about, right? Because till the time it's a transactional purchase, they'll come in knowing what they want and pick it up if it's of the right quality and at the right price. But specifically for new products is where the challenges for us retailers is significantly higher, along with the consumer goods brands. If I have to give an example of what we are doing at Lamarche, which we call as bringing the product experience to life, which is how do we engage more and more with the consumers, how do we give them that experience which actually brings them closer to the product or trials, and then it actually ends up in the transaction, right? So if we give an example, let's say, of a category which might resonate with a lot of us here, is the category of alternate proteins or mock meats, and which has actually gained traction only in the post-pandemic period, so to say. Now, pre-pandemic, typically a new product would be treated in the manner wherein you'd have a product, you'll probably have a promoter talk about the product, or there will be certain sampling which would be going on, and the consumer will have a look at it, try it. If they like it, so be it. Otherwise, they'll just walk away. That has now fundamentally changed, because the opportunity of trials has gone down because of the risk appetite now being lower. So how do we create that difference? This by actually leveraging digital in a larger manner. So what we end up doing is that there are large digital screens which talk about the product in detail. There is also a QR code on the shelves which can direct the consumers to the product website or anything that the brand recommends in terms of detailing about the product. And then subtly placed alongside that is the sampling. So if they try it out after reading about the product themselves and they like it, then the traction actually increases. Now, this has been a fundamental game changer for us, because the way the brands have actually adopted this in the post-pandemic scenario has led that our entire inventory of digital assets is actually sold out for the next 12 months, right? So that is how the experience can actually be translated for higher transaction and higher time spent in the store, as one of the examples.
Thanks, Amit. If I could also ask Sunil if you want to give a little bit of ideas on how you can increase that with music.
Right. So if we look at the classical model of building brand experience in the retail outlets has been focused on visual merchandising, etc. But if you look at the global trends, sensory brand experience has become extremely important, and that's the new thing which is growing globally. It means, does a brand have a particular aroma? Does a brand have a particular music, so that when people go inside the outlets, they feel they get into a brand experience which is 360 degree. We work very closely with some of the leading brands to create brand experiences using music as one of the key sensory experience. It means brands have visual identity. Do they have their own distinct sound? And once we create their distinct sound, then whatever the consumer interfacing opportunities are there, whether it is the music in the outlets, whether it is creating certain exclusive experiences in the outlets, or even in social media, whatever content is being used, does the sound related with the brand is unique. So I think whatever case studies we have and the research we have done, the consumer engagement in the showrooms, the time spent in the showroom, we have seen significantly increased when the brand goes for creating a sound identity and creating the brand experience in the outlets rather than a radio experience.
Thanks, Sunil. Manik, what is your perspective from Adidas' point of view? What is your perspective?
I think in our case, we look for a certain size of stores in different trade zones, different catchment. And once you get the store of a certain size, that's how you decide what kind of elements that you can add in the store to enhance the customer experience, which tells you that to what level will it take. So not every catchment, whether high street or mall, will either allow you to have store of a certain size or a bigger size. But let's say we have a certain size. There are elements that we add in the store, which includes a completely different digital experience. For example, the next upcoming store, which we call a Halo store in India, will be having around 100 digital touch points. Then we talk about elements like sustainability in our store, which we were not touching till a few years back. But we like to talk to the customer, and we try to engage the customer in a manner to enhance his knowledge on sustainability and to actually tell him that what we are really doing. So for example, we are cleaning oceans and reusing that plastic, and we are developing complete range of products in that segment. And we have a target given to our own teams globally that by 2030, every single product that we made should be made from sustainable plastic. The percentage varies in different countries. We have reached a certain stage in India today. I mean, I have my own collection, which is, you can't figure out the difference, but it's from that reusable plastic. But we were not talking about it earlier at all. We are talking about it to some extent now, but when we talk to the customer directly, we find it much more, the customer finds it fascinating. For example, the wood that we are using in our store, in upcoming store, it is not the regular wood used by cutting trees. It is treated wood, which is grown in a controlled environment by the government, which is used for this particular purpose only. And even with that usage, you are adding more trees when you are using those kind of wood areas. So it's a mix of sustainable actions which you inform the customer and make them involved in your store, and at the same time the digital elements, and adding zones in a manner that give you sense of space where you can actually experience the store in a much better manner.
Thanks for that. So we'll move on to our second question, and this is really targeted towards the mall owners and the new developments coming up. So with the new upcoming malls that are being planned in the country today, we have nearly 31 million square feet as per our report, which is under construction and planned in the next 5 years, which is very, very positive for most of the retail businesses. So, Abhishek, what do you think is really the next level of design that you guys want to think of offering the customers and also the retailers? And what will drive them for to get a better experience within the center and increase their shopping time within the center?
Thank you. I think more than just giving shops on rent and creating a profitable business model is to see how the malls can be more sustainable. With sustainability, I mean that how you're able to create traffic and retain traffic for a longer period of time. what we, in personal experience, we are targeting more neighborhood shopping centers wherein we create a community space, not just somewhere where people can shop. It's a space where they get together, like, if people live in a big colony, they get together at a town hall or a club. So we create events specifically for that, which are children focused, family focused. So one way is that designing, I think everything is becoming more experience oriented, because if we are looking at malls not for shopping, just for experiences, is because you have a online presence of the products that you can buy, and then you have kind of a motivation to get up and go through traffic and reach a place and kind of do everything in one place. So I think the motivation levels will be at different directions, wherein people want to go and have a good time. Joy making is a big factor, and having a good family time. So we are looking at more outdoor driven malls. Good feel of greenery, nice weather, more terraces, outdoor seatings, and specifically operating the mall in the way that you create more and more pulling factors for the people to come. So it's not only the shops, the brand mix, but also what the mall is running on. So, for example, we have Firefox, so we created kind of a cycle ride, and then we provided refreshments for the people to come back to the mall and kind of stay there for longer. Something like tying up with schools around in the area to do some kids-based activities. So lots of stuff like this, live music, open mic, things like that, flea markets, which are based on local entrepreneurs who are working out of their basements to showcase their stuff. So this is, new ideas that one can think of in terms of operating. And design, of course, is definitely a big factor, because, as you know, a lot of malls you see around you don't work. They hardly function. There are very few successful malls. And that's because they have an intent to lease. They have an intent to place the brands in the right manner, get the circulation flow right so the customer is able to browse each and everything in the mall and experience the journey. So these are the few things that we think about.
Thanks for that. And Mrinal, if you want to give your inputs as well, and what are you planning, and how are you innovating?
Sure. So, just echoing the thoughts that Abhishek kind of shared right now, one of the things that now has come after COVID is that shopping centers or malls are not just shopping centers, they're experience centers now. So we just need to create those kind of experiences for our customers that they're actually willing to drive down to the mall rather than just shop online, right? Naturally, what Abhishek again spoke about this, but events happening in the mall. Earlier, pre-COVID, most of the events were targeted towards festivals. So let's say there's a Republic Day event, there's a Holi or Diwali event. But now you will find a lot of music festivals happening in the mall atriums, for example. Or you could even find a lot of just flea markets happening near the malls. So a lot of those things have added to the experience part of it. Another thing, big thing that we've realized is that a mall is not good as just the shopping or the retail part. Mixed land development is very important today to create that kind of an experience. So we've kind of realized internally that a 4:3:1 kind of ratio works very well. So 4 for retail, 3 for office spaces, and 1 for a hospitality kind of center. So that works really well for all kinds of entertainment hubs. You create that kind of a mix. People are always present in different time zones. So like, the hotel will run very well during the night time, while the mall dining will work at the same time as well. Offices occupy the daytime part of it. So those things have worked out really well. Another, design-wise, we've realized that creating some of these very small, tiny things like creating seamless entrances and exits to shops, so people don't realize, a shopper doesn't realize when they're entering a store or when they're in the atrium, kind of having these smaller experience points in the atrium itself is another thing that we've added. Like, so let's say a Starbucks is opening in a mall, so before the shop opens, we'll have a small outlet in the atrium itself, so the customer kind of recognizes, okay, Starbucks was there, and now it will open up very soon. So those kind of things we're trying with our malls now.
And Harsh, what? Sorry.
Sorry, I'll just quickly add something to this. and maybe it will be useful for a lot of people who are into the mall business and creating new malls. Uh, in India, music system is going through a very, very structural change where large number of independent artists are becoming popular amongst youth. And after COVID, we have seen a trend that the events have become more ticketed events and they are pretty successful. People are paying anything from 1,000 rupees to 2,000 rupees for tickets, and a lot of such events are happening. But one critical, sort of bottleneck in this entire ecosystem is that there are no proper places to hold these events. And perhaps in any city, malls have opportunity to emerge as the largest, the center where such kind of events can be hosted. But if it has to be ticketed events, one needs to perhaps think through beforehand that what is the place which can be isolated for ticketed events. Also, just any kind of open space may not be good for acoustic, because if it's a ticketed event, people need to be very, very careful about that there are no echoes, there's no so much of glass around that area, etc. So I think one of the things which people, I personally feel that event industry is going to become very, very big. And perhaps the way multiplex theaters, food centers have become integral part of mall experience, there is an opportunity that malls could be the biggest live center, center for live events as well.
Sure, thanks. So Harsh, what is your opinion and what do you think because you're coming in from a very different perspective. So what is your sense?
So I think let's think about our experiences today. We got dropped off. Those who came in the car near gate number 20, you came through the front doors, took the elevator, the escalators up, beautiful, came in here. Some of us who have stalls were here, yes, last night. We came through the back door, we saw the loading, unloading decks and stuff like that. And I think there are two sides of every experience zone. There's the side which a customer sees, and there's a side which the sort of host also sets up for the customer to experience. And I think that's true for a store also. While most of us talk about stores in terms of giving a sensory experience to the customer, there are a lot of things that we're doing today which is also dependent on the store being pretty much the only physical touch point between the brand and the retailer. So Manik mentioned how there are about 100 digital touch points that Adidas is having in its stores. But how do you go about setting up the store in order to read those touch points well, effectively manage them, and also make it slightly more interactive? Most people use CCTV cameras for security, but can it be used for analytics of customers walking in, walking out as well? And no one thinks about it from that angle. So as you start looking at what a store does, is not just about getting a consumer to shop, but also the only physical aspect between a brand and a customer. How do you design that for technology and omni-channel, which is now playing a big role in a shopping journey of a customer? Right? Internet was at best given to the point of sale system, because that's where billing is going to happen. But now that you've got endless aisles or shoppers on their phone and stuff like that, every store in every nook and corner needs to have Wi-Fi. One of the most used Wi-Fi areas is actually the changing room, where someone's actually taking a photo of themselves in an outfit and sharing it with their friends, or asking, how do I look? Do you think I should buy this or no? And no one really thinks about that aspect of it. So as technology comes in, how do you even design the store keeping in mind these touch points, which are going to define a physical plus digital experience that are given to the customer, beyond just, hey, you know what, this is a good experience. And I think that's where store design needs to incorporate a bunch of these omni-channel elements as well.
Thanks for your insights. I will just move on to the last question for the session today. In regards to bringing the client in, now we've obviously spoken about the store internally, the innovation in the store. We've spoken about the innovation in the development itself. Now the customers in the store, and how do we really increase their spend capacity? And what is important is the human touch. So how do we look at training and the learnings that we've got as some of the retailers to increase the sales in the store through physical human touch? So that's to Manik first.
I think it's part of our basic training, which is how it should start. I'm sure most of us would have. We have something called a training academy, which is a very imperial part of any team in the company globally, and it is recognized very strongly. And the So one is obviously that training. You train your people on soft skills. You train them on learning the literature. But we, as much as we try, I think one thing very interesting that we also do is that any situation or concern that happens, which we might have not expected in any routine operations, we all put them as case studies. But how much do we really use that as a data or as a knowledge building tool to enhance the knowledge of other people? It is not necessary that a certain experience would have happened in every store, but every experience has a reason or a history behind it, what happened in that situation. I think it becomes important when we use that as a case study and discuss that in a few minutes briefing in our daily routines. We often do that. We do that in our stores across the country. We share information in our briefs and debriefs. So in addition to training them for soft skills and giving them target, we add these case studies as well as the literature about new products, which is spoken openly, and we welcome feedback from any internal staff so that it engages them even more.
Sure, thanks for that. Amit, what are your insights?
I think, in my opinion, the single biggest impactor post the pandemic for the retail industry is how the pandemic has actually impacted the retail sales force. So the day in a life of a sales exec has completely undergone a change. Let's take the example of La Marche again. So, prior to the pandemic, life was honestly very easy because we were an offline forward retailer focusing on experience. All we needed to do was guarantee a great customer experience and the sales was through. Post the pandemic, the number of home delivery calls has significantly gone up. We are getting orders on WhatsApp. Then there is conversational commerce that we've implemented in the form of a chatbot, right? Then we are forced to work with aggregators like Zomato, Swiggy, Dunzo, etc. for online orders. We've implemented our own omni-channel in terms of our own apps and web store. So just imagine the number of channels of sales that have opened up and the number of screens that a retail exec now has to look into. Double that up with the fact that we'll also have to include digital operations as a way of life, right? Earlier, it was easy for the head office team to actually visit stores and do an audit and figure out what's wrong. Now, maybe post the pandemic, it's not that easy, at least when the lockdowns are on. So you start with digital audits, right? That's another added aspect. I talked about digital displays earlier. Those also have to be managed by the store team in the store. So just the amount of work and the different complexities that have emerged is mind-boggling. What we've therefore done is that we've realized that it can't be a one-size-fits-all. We've segregated the digital operations from an omni standpoint into three. One is the external partnerships, which are the aggregators, right? Second are the internal digital elements like our chatbot and web store and apps. And third is the digital operations, right? So there are specific teams assigned to specific jobs in the store. At a head office level, however, from a training standpoint, it's all centralized because that is how the shared synergies will come into play. What we've also done is that as a way of adoption, one of the first things that we did was that the entire HRMS was put on digital so that each and every employee to some extent gets access to how the digital way of life would be. And lastly, to sum it up, digital adoption as a way of life is a key KRA for the HR team as well as my direct reports or the HODs per se, for them to be able to drive this through and through the organization. Lastly, we are following a super user concept with those who are familiar with SAP and how SAP implementations work this will resonate with them. So there are key users for each store who are designated super users and they would end up training the new joinees who would come in because they'd be more, more keen on actually sharing some of the daily complexities that come up in the retail associate's life. And that's how the new joiners would also be spruced up for the same.
So thank you for that. I'll just quickly sum up where we are and what we've learned today. So like we had, our esteemed panelists are talking about retail overall. In terms of innovation, obviously there's a lot of innovation happening in retail. As you can see, the complexity, the multiple levels of channels of sales that are being tracked is gone up tremendously. So there's a lot of digitization in the business to innovate and obviously increase the quality of the product and also the distribution of the product. So there is a lot of back-end innovation in the retail side. Obviously, omni-channel is important as a segmentation of the business and everyone is focused on that. But the focus is really to bring in that client and touch and feel is more important. And that's why we have great malls coming up in the next few years. And in coming to malls as well, there are more community centers, like we mentioned, They're all mixed use. We have a lot of the new developments coming up are larger in size. They cater to retail, office, and also to housing in some way or the other, or even hospitality. So we're looking at larger developments coming in. What also was really important is that some of the older malls have not survived because of bad planning and because of the size also. So sizing and design is very important for the future of malls. And finally, coming to the people itself, and that's a very important element in physical brick and mortar. People are very important, and getting the people trained is very important. And the upsell physically is always higher. We had an example we spoke about in the panel where we spoke about Pepperfry and a few other furniture stores which actually are focused on online sales, but they drive in a customer to see the product, and there's a further upsell that happens. And that is somehow going to be the future, where more and more of these products are coming in, where customers are looking to come in, look at them, and probably buy online in the store. And even we have seen in few instances internationally also that we have retailers who sell online and ask the customer to come pick it up from stores. And then they do an upsell over there as well. So brick and mortar is here to stay, which is very important. And we thank the panelists and thank you all for your time. Thank you.